This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification button. I'm Mike Wives, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King from Steelers Nation South, Rollo Coughlin, and of course, Penn State Collegiate All-Star Kevin Adams. Tonight's debate is going to be the top 5 Dallas Cowboys defensive backs, and we are joined by a man with over 50 years of coaching experience. In colleges like Pitt, USC, Oregon State, Miami, just to name a few. And of course, the NFL, he's defensive coordinator for the Browns and the Cowboys, and also became the Cowboys head coach. So we want to welcome here Coach Dave Campo. Dave, thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, guys. That's great. Thank you for having me.
And Dave told us earlier you can catch him on the radio if you're in the Jacksonville area down in Florida. So check that out, everybody. So we will have our Q&A for him after our debate. And we are going to jump in this because when we do our top 5 shows, we got 8 players to discuss, and we're going to start with Rollo.
So I'm starting off with Darren Woodson from Phoenix, Arizona, who's a star linebacker at Arizona State. He was extremely versatile, despite being considered undersized. He would play 2 games at defensive end and also lining up at inside linebacker at times. But somebody named Dave Campo spotted a safety in waiting. He would have Darren Woodson perform DB drills, and under Coach Campo's vision, would get Woodson selected in the second round of the 92 draft. He would play his rookie year behind Thomas Everett, but he started on special teams with 19 special teams tackles and made the all-rookie team as a special teamer. He would become starter the following season, finishing second on the Cowboys' defensive tackles with 155 and 3 fumble recoveries. But what really stood out about Woodson was his ability to cover receivers and tight ends. His speed and versatility would allow him to run down the seams with tight ends and run with receivers across the field. He would see that you would see that versatility come into play in '94 as he tied the team lead with 5 interceptions, including a 94-yard pick six off Randall Cunningham. He would pick off 23 passes in Dallas, record 11 fumble recoveries, and 11 sacks. He was a 3-time first-team All-Pro, 1-time second-team All-Pro, and 5-time Pro Bowler in Dallas. And he's also voted into the Cowboys Ring of Honor.
Coach Darren Woodson, what did you see in him?
He's my baby. You know, I went out to Arizona State, and before you have a workout, they have the room set up and they have scouts, whoever's there that can watch tape until it starts. And I'm watching Woodson run around, and a few of the scouts were saying, I don't know about this Woodson guy, because he didn't see him hit a lot of people because Arizona State had a good football team. So, but he was always around the football. So we went out, and Jimmy had told us that we needed, at that time, the NFC East was a power football conference division, and he said we need a strong safety that can bring it. So we went out to work out. He gets at the 40-yard dash. I'm standing there. He runs a 4.38 at 6'2.5", 218. So I said, hey, I've got to work this guy out as a DB. So I worked him out. I came back to Jimmy. I said, listen, he's got all the tools. The only thing I don't know if he's going to be a big interceptor, because he's never been back in the back end. He was a linebacker, Willie linebacker. And so when it got to the draft, I told him, I said, Jimmy, this guy will start for us on special teams, every special team. And I really think he's got a chance to be back there, and he could be our nickel back. So that's what he did the first year. And after the first year, he did so many good things. Jimmy came to me and he said, Dave, we're going to start Darren Woodson at safety next year. I said, Jimmy, I'm not sure. I didn't like those young players back there. He looked at me and he said, Dave, we're going to start Darren Woodson next year. And I said, Jimmy, that's exactly what I was going to say. We're starting Darren Woodson. And he went on to, the guy has the career tackles. He broke it the same day Emmett broke the record for career rushing. And nobody saw that because of Emmett, but he is a fantastic player and a great person. You'd love to have him for your son, and he needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
I agree. Well, let's go to Kevin.
Speaking of Woodson, we'll go on with Roy Williams, who Woodson actually helped mentor, All-American from Oklahoma, played safety for 9 seasons, 7 with Dallas. He earned 5 straight Pro Bowl selections from 2003 to 2007 with Dallas. He was one of the most violent hitters. This dude was in your face, hard-nosed, knock you around. Some thought he was a little bit of a dirty hitter, though. He was selected by the Cowboys, 8th overall in the first round of 2002 NFL Draft. He was known throughout the league for his hard hitting, his tackling skills during running plays. He would blitz, do short coverage passes during the nickel and dime situations. As a rookie in 2002, he tied the franchise single-season record for most interceptions returned for a touchdown with 2. He was the runner-up for the Defensive Rookie of the Year that year. 2003, he'd have another great season, earn his first trip to the Pro Bowl, helped lead the Dallas Cowboys to their first playoff game since '99. He also got his first team All-Pro that year. And he was nicknamed the Biscuit because Bill Parcells said he was just a biscuit shy of a linebacker. Tells you how big this guy was playing safety. 2004, unfortunately, he suffered a herniated disc in camp. And then there's some inexperience and inconsistencies with the cornerback position, so he had to play more coverage. And this is where the horse collar tackler role came into effect, known as the Roy Williams rule, because he used the horse collar a little bit too much. End of the 2005 season, he had 2.5 sacks, three interceptions. Got his 3rd Pro Bowl berth. He remained a staple in the defense. 2007, he got his 5th straight Pro Bowl. He finished his time with Dallas, 19 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 471 solo tackles, 601 total tackles, and tied for 4th with interceptions returned for a touchdown. This man's scary. All your players could learn a few things from this guy and his hard hitting. He has a good argument.
Well, Roy, first of all, he's an outstanding football player. And when I say that, I'm not talking about doing all of the different things. He was a true hitting safety, around the line of scrimmage, very physical. He was one of the DBs that we drafted when I was a head coach, so I know him very well. He definitely deserves recognition because the guy was an outstanding hitter, outstanding tackler. He wasn't a great interceptor because he was around the line of scrimmage a lot, but you couldn't run the ball when he was in there, and that was his claim to fame. And he definitely he was the guy for the horse collar tackle because he did it a lot, and so he has a legacy in the league because of that. And the guy was in, I think you said 6 straight Pro Bowls or whatever.
Yeah.
He was an outstanding player.
Coach, did he play within the rules or was he dirty, in your opinion?
Dirty is a word I don't like to use. He was there to make plays, and that's what he did. And he had Darren Woodson back on the back end to kind of parole everything, and he was just up there trying to find somebody to hit. So, that happens. You might get a helmet to helmet. Today's game, you don't see it anymore because they call a penalty on it. But he probably had a few of those in his career.
Kevin, you know what dirty's like. You're wearing a Steelers jersey. Hines Ward used to knock everybody out. So, they made rules for him. But let's move on to our next player here. And I am honored. I don't know if he'll be in our top 5, but I am honored to represent Bill Bates because he is a class act of the NFL. He is one of the all-time great guys. Undrafted in 1983, but makes the Cowboys team. Played his whole career there all the way till 1997, making Pro Bowl in 84, all-rookie team in 83, and, of course, he won 3 Super Bowls there. Of the players tonight, he is the Cowboys sack leader with 18. Second in tackles with 669 and number 1 in games played. So he does have those accolades. Now, if I look at the back end and actual coverage, his interceptions and stuff aren't going to be as great as the other guys we're talking about, but he was a different type of player. So he was a leader on a young and up and coming defense that, we, like we just said, went on to win 3 Super Bowls. He does have 14 career interceptions, and we can add 7 fumble recoveries into that. So that's 21 turnovers for him. Good solid tackler, and that shows by being the NFL Special Teams Player of the Year. He won that award. And I mentioned his character at the very beginning of this. He won the Bob Lilly Award from 1990 through 94. And I'm going to finish my thing out here with Bill Landry, one of the all-time great coaches. Here's a quote from him. If we had 11 players on the field who played as hard and does the homework like Bill Bates does, we'd be almost impossible to beat. So just huge words from an all-time great coach.
Well,
Coach, your thoughts, yeah.
Yeah, listen, Bill Bates did everything for us. He led the team in special teams, obviously. And, he created the position. That first person other than a kicker to go to the Pro Bowl, that designation is because of him. Parcells also made the comment that you start the game with a kick and you finish it here with a bang. And that's Bill. Bill ended up being a big player for us, even though he didn't play much at safety for us. He started at safety before we got there. But when we got Woodson there, obviously that changed. And he ended up being the middle linebacker when we put 7 DBs on the field. And we did it a lot because he was physical enough to play the middle linebacker against the run, even though he was a defensive back. And that's where he got a lot of his sacks and those kind of things, because we would blitz him and do some of those things. And he made, in my opinion, one of the biggest plays in our time there. The first year we went to the playoffs playing Chicago up there, our first playoff win, which kind of propelled us going forward, he intercepted the ball while they were driving at the end of the game. We ended up winning the game, and we got knocked out the next week, but that was the year before we went to the Super Bowl. That was 1991. So I love Bill Bates. He lives right over here in Jacksonville, and I see him all the time.
Awesome. Brian.
All right, so now I'm going to represent Cliff Harris, nicknamed Captain Crash, for his almost daredevil-type pursuit and reckless hard hits in the secondary. Interestingly, Harris wore the same pads that a place kicker wore, rather than the more bulky ones worn by his fellow safeties around the league. He claimed that this allowed him to keep up his speed and his quickness up to a higher level. Hall of Fame safety Larry Wilson was once quoted as saying, "Harris is the finest safety in the business today. He changed the way the position is played. The way Harris plays the pass, he is striking fear in everyone on the field because he hits so hard." Harris joined the Cowboys in 1970 as an undrafted free agent. He played with them for the next 10 seasons. During that time, he was named to the All-Pro team 5 times and a Pro Bowler 6 times, and was ultimately named to the NFL's All-Decade team for the 1970s. Harris was able to pick off 29 passes from his free safety position, and he recovered 18 fumbles. So that's 47 turnovers that he completed, which is pretty impressive. And in the postseason, he was able to pick off a pass in 6 different games, including the Cowboys' 7-point victory over Atlanta in 1978. And in 2020, this hard-hitting, heat-seeking missile was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So that's Cliff Harris.
Well deserved. The guy, I just saw him the other day, had a chance to visit with him. He looks like he could still play. Jimmy Johnson's induction, he was out there along with all the other Ring of Honor and Hall of Fame guys. And I love him. He was talking about hitting people at the meeting, at the event prior to Jimmy getting inducted. Very, very good player. When he came in, he beat out Charlie Waters, who had been there,
right,
and ended up, starting. And then Waters the next year ended up with him. And that duo was probably 2 of the best in the business at that time. I love Cliff Harris, very physical, but also a ball hawk. I mean, the guy went after the football. He made a lot of big plays. He was one of those guys that just seemed to be around the football. Obviously, I wasn't there with him, but I saw enough film on him to say that he deserves to be in this conversation as being one of the best ever in Dallas.
So halfway through, our honorable mention night is Cornell Green. Rollo, who you got next?
I got Everson Walls. Everson Walls from Richardson, Texas. Was a walk-on at Grambling, but wound up starring at defensive back, recording 11 interceptions as a senior and being named first team 1AA All-American. But despite that remarkable season, senior year, he would go undrafted because teams thought he was too slow. He actually ran a 4.72 at his pro day. But he would get signed by his hometown Cowboys, and he would not disappoint. He would intercept 3 passes, recover a fumble, and score a TD in the preseason on a block punt. He would carry that success into the regular season. He would intercept 4 passes in his first 4 games, leading the league in that time despite being a backup. He would become a starter in week 5 versus the Cardinals and would get 6 picks over the next 6 games and wind up leading the league with 11 interceptions. And he would go to his first Pro Bowl. He would lead the league again in the strike-shortened season with 7 picks in 9 games. He would be named AP All-Pro second team and finish 6th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He would be named first team All-Pro in 83, and in 85, he would lead the league in picks again with 9 and named to his second All-Pro team. He would finish second all-time in Cowboys history with 44 picks, and he is one of 2 players, him and Ed Reed are the only 2 players that have led the league in interceptions 3 times. Everson Walls.
I'll tell you, Everson Walls had the best eyes of a defensive back that I've been around. And, you know, he was only with us for 1 year. When we came in 1989, you know, he was a corner, and his game really was to play off of guys because of his speed. But he had such great eyes that he could see what was happening, and he would go get the ball. And the guy was a tremendous interceptor. We played a lot of cover 2, rolling the corners, which he really didn't like to do when we came in there. And we ended up changing after that year. But that first year, he was not happy with us because he didn't feel comfortable with what we were doing. And Jimmy ended up letting him go after that first year. He went on to the Giants, and really he saved his career there because they were a cover 2 team, but they moved him to safety. And that he played safety for another, I think, 3 or 4 years over there because and still was a ball hawk going to get the football, and he was a really good open field tackler. So I didn't get the chance to coach him very much, but I'll guarantee you that one of the things you look for in a defensive back is the ability to see and not lose your eyes to where you lose where everybody is. And he had great eyes, and his athletic ability was better than his overall speed, for sure.
All right, we're going to move into Deion Sanders, Deion Prime Time, Coach Prime. 5 seasons with Dallas, cornerback, played wide receiver, return specialist, won his 2nd Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. He was the 1990s All-Decade Team, 100th Anniversary All-Time Team. He signed with Dallas September 9th, 95, making him the highest paid defensive player in the NFL at the time. He was actually offered more money from the Raiders, but he turned it down because he wanted the chance to go back-to-back with Dallas and play with his friend Michael Irvin. NFL Network named Deion Sanders and any other cornerback in the league in their top 10 greatest cornerback tandems in NFL history. Started opposite 13 other cornerbacks, and no matter who started on the other side, they were better because number 21 was on the other side battling with them. His 5 years in Dallas, he delivered primetime talent. He made 4 Pro Bowls, first team All-Pro 3 times, 1 second team All-Pro, becoming the best cornerback that the Dallas Cowboys had ever seen. Even as part of only 1 Super Bowl team in Dallas, he's still remembered there. Very much so. FanDuel named him number 5 best Cowboys defensive player of all time. Only other player that we're talking about was Renfro, that we're talking about tonight, that was on that list. Primetime is the man. He played both sides of the ball. You can't say enough about Primetime, Deion, Neon.
Kevin, he also caught a post for a big play against y'all in that Super Bowl.
Yep.
Deion really taught me a lesson. After, you're never too old to learn something, because we were in Houston playing in a preseason game. We were in Mexico City playing against Houston in a preseason game, and Jerry came up to us. We had just won 2 Super Bowls. This was the third year after the 2 Super Bowl wins. I had the same room in the secondary. I was a secondary coach at that time, and Jerry came up and said, "Hey, Deion's going to play after the 7th game when he finishes playing baseball this year. Do we want him?" And I said, "Well, the only thing I knew about Deion, we played against him. He was kind of flashy, and I was a little worried about him changing the chemistry in that DB room." And I said, "Well, I don't know." Well, we don't take him. He goes to San Francisco. He armbars Michael Irvin, and we lose the football game. So Jerry came to me after the game, and he said, "You want Deion now?" I said, "Absolutely. Send him over here." And he came in, and we won the Super Bowl the next year. But the guy was a phenomenal athlete. You really didn't have to personally coach him a lot on technique because he didn't use any. He was so athletic and so fast that when you looked at him, no one would throw over there. If you threw at him, he does marketing today, but he was a marketer back then. if you threw at him, you might get two completions, one incompletion, but the fourth one is probably an interception. And if he touched the ball, he probably is going to put it into the end zone. So teams didn't even challenge him. And we were fortunate enough to have good corners on the other side to be able to handle him, Larry Brown being one of them. And he is the best, probably the best overall athlete that I've ever been around.
Well, we're going to move to what is, I believe, our most recent player tonight. So first round pick number 5 overall in the 2003 draft by the Dallas Cowboys. He would play there all the way until 2011. He would later go on and finish out his career there in Minnesota. But he's a 2-time Pro Bowler. Oh, Terrence Newman, by the way. I forgot to say his name, so we're talking Terrence Newman. 2-time Pro Bowler, 2003 All-Rookie team there for the NFL. He's got 32 career interceptions in Dallas. That is good for third tonight. His 492 tackles puts him second tonight behind Bill Bates, and his 3 touchdowns ties him for first tonight. So Terrence, for me, he is remembered for being, I think, quick on the ball. Like when he picked one off, it wasn't like, something that was just overthrown or deflected. He was darting in front of those wide receivers. And I was always very impressed by that. And he was a threat every time he had it. The 3 touchdowns show that. So he was very good with the ball. Just one more little accolade for him. Now, granted, this was in Minnesota, but those last 3 seasons in Minnesota, he was still a starting cornerback at 39 years old. So that has to tell you the kind of speed that he has and how good he was, in his prime, of course. So, Coach.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of going back and coaching him. When I came back to the Cowboys after going to Cleveland and Jacksonville, I came back as a secondary coach for 4 years, and he had been in the league for a long time. And the one thing that sticks out to me about Terrence is he was, as you said, he had great acceleration to the football, and another guy that could catch the ball. Some of the DBs can't catch the ball. That's why they're DBs instead of receivers. Well, he could catch the ball, and he had really quick, good instincts. And I look at him as a steady guy. I don't look at him like he's a superstar, but I look at him like he's one of the guys you want on your team, because he's another guy, when he touched the ball, he had a chance to put it in the end zone because of his athletic ability. I think Terrence it belongs in this group that you're talking about. And, I just think, and when we let him go, it was because of salary cap situations. He did have more time with Mike Zimmer at Cincinnati, and then on to Minnesota with him. He finished his career off well. So I like Terrence. He was a good tackler. And I think you said that he was a physical guy, and I really like him as a cover corner for sure.
And we can all note that Kevin didn't point out Deion's tackling. Just saying.
Yeah.
Brian, give us our final player tonight.
All right. I got Mel Renfro. He was both a DB and a running back in college at Oregon. But after the Cowboys drafted him, Coach Tom Landry decided to put him at free safety. Renfro was 6 foot tall, 190 pounds, and very fast. So this turned out to be a great fit in Landry's defense. Even as a rookie in 1964, Renfro made a large impact. He picked off 7 passes and began a streak of 10 consecutive Pro Bowl selections. Perhaps Renfro's best season was 1969. He picked off a league-leading 10 passes and made the All-Pro team. Now, typically when a player in the secondary gets older, they move from cornerback to safety. But Renfro actually did the opposite. At age 29 in 1970, Landry moved Renfro to corner from safety, and he responded by making the Pro Bowl 4 more times from 1970 to 1973. And in the 1970 NFC Championship game, he came up with a huge INT off of Niners QB John Brody, which set up the Cowboys' game-winning drive. When Renfro retired after the 1977 season, he had 52 interceptions. This is still the 15th highest career total in NFL history. A great athlete, a fast runner, a versatile player in the secondary, a 10-time Pro Bowler, and a Pro Football Hall of Famer. That's Mel Renfro.
Wow, Mel Renfro. I grew up watching Mel Renfro. You know, obviously he's one of those guys that stuck out every time you saw him. He was obviously we saw him on Thanksgiving Day, every year. And what an unbelievable player and person. He is still, active around the Cowboys. And I saw him. He was one of the guys that I saw when I went back for the induction. Had a nice conversation with him. This guy, you talk about versatility. He played running back for a year there too. So I mean,
Right.
The guy could do it all. He's one of those guys that was just such a great athlete. He was voted the best athlete on the Cowboys, and they had the receiver.
Bullet Bob.
Yeah, Bob Hayes.
Bullet Bob Hayes. Yeah.
On the same squad. And so,
Right.
I think he's was a fantastic football player. And in old school days, he was probably one of the best to ever play back in those days for sure.
Well, let's move into our vote. Cannot pick your own. Rollo, who are you taking?
I got to take Cliff Harris.
Cliff Harris. Kevin.
I'm gonna have to go with Renfro.
You know what? That's who I was going to take. So, that makes it a little harder on me. I guess I'll go with Dave's baby, Darren Woodson. There, can't go wrong with that. Brian.
Oh man, the pressure is really on now. These guys are all really good, and they're all about equal. I guess I got to go with Dion, just the shut down corner thing. I mean, I know he wasn't there all that long, but even while he was there, he made such an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, you took all of my guys.
Well, that's why the pressure's on you. So you got number 5 here left. We got Roy Williams, Bill Bates, Everson Walls, and Terrence Newman.
Oh boy. You know what? I'm gonna say for overall, I'm gonna go Cliff Harris.
Oh, he's already on the list. You got.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. I'm going with Everson Walls because Everson Walls did almost everything for 2 Super Bowl wins, and it's just a great player.
Very nice.
All right, there you go. So, Legacy Battles top 5 Dallas Cowboy DBs of all time: Darren Woodson, Cliff Harris, Everson Walls, Deion Sanders, and Mel Renfro. Nice job, guys. We're gonna move into our Q&A. Let's see, Brian and Rollo, you both got 2 on the list, so we'll give Brian first question, then Rollo, Kevin, me.
All right. So, Coach, you worked on Jimmy Johnson's staff, both with the Miami Hurricanes and with the Dallas Cowboys. Enjoyed plenty of success. The national championship, the Super Bowls. What was it like working with Jimmy, and what was it about him that made him so successful?
Well, first of all, working for him, he always kept everybody on edge, which he did that with the players, but he also did it with us. He made us aware of the fact that, our job was to get the job done. And that always impressed me because, the work ethic was there and he trusted us. That's why a guy like Darren Woodson ended up with the Cowboys, because he actually trusted our coaching staff in many ways more than the scouts. And the same thing with Larry Brown. I actually found Larry Brown, and we ended up taking him in the 12th round. And so he trusted us, which I thought was really important. I think the thing that stuck out more than anything else, Jimmy had his thoughts about, what to run, his scheme, especially on defense. But the thing that stuck out to me more than anything else was he knew every player. He was a psychology major. And he knew every player, and he knew what buttons to push with every player. And I think that stands out more than anything else. A great talent evaluator and knowing his personnel and knowing what they could do.
Coach, you coached in one of the most iconic games of all time, the Catholics versus Convicts game. What was that game like leading up? Was the hype really like that? And what was you guys came up short, but what was the game like?
Well, I'll tell you what, we played at Notre Dame, and obviously there's a lot of tradition there. And the Hurricanes had and I'm going to be careful what I say here, because we really didn't have convicts. You know, we had 90% graduation rate at the University of Miami, which is a pretty good school. And the key to it was that the guys, we had some players that people today call them dogs. Back in the day, these guys were guys that loved the game of football, but they were kind of on the edge all the time. You know, Michael Irvin got in trouble for running over the foot of one of the campus police officers because he was trying to get out of a parking place that he wasn't supposed to be in. You know, that was the convicts, all right? We didn't have a bunch of guys getting in a lot of trouble. Now, one of the things that I say here, and I have to be a little careful, the media was at that time, really had it in for us a little bit because we had a bunch of black kids on our football team. And so it was the Catholics against the convicts automatically. Well, let me tell you something. We had players, when I went to the NFL, everybody says, how did you adjust going from college to the pros? It was easy because we had a bunch of pro players on the University of Miami. So it was a great game. We got hammered in it because Cleveland Gary fumbled and we recovered it on 4th down going in for the touchdown to win the game, and they moved the chains. It was actually a 1st down, but they gave the ball to Notre Dame. And then at the end, we went for 2 and didn't make it. So it was a great game. There was a fight in the tunnel. I was in the middle of it. I had Leon Searcy standing right next to me, so I felt like I was all right in there amongst the guys. But it was a great game, and it was a great rivalry.
So you won 3 titles with Dallas. Just want to know which one was most memorable and why.
You know, I think the one that is the most memorable for me was the first one because I don't think anybody felt we were going to make it. And the first time you go in there, you know, I went out on the field and Danny Sakanovich, who was a coach for the Buffalo Bills at the time, was from Connecticut. So I knew him. And I'm standing there, and it was Super Bowl 30. And he said, you know, you do realize that there are only a maximum of 60 DB coaches that have stood on this field, you know, in this game. So it was that big of a deal. And when we came to the stadium, if you're familiar with the Rose Bowl, you come out of an area of a bunch of houses, and then all of a sudden, there's the Rose Bowl in the valley. And when we came out the day before for the media day, there were 200,000 people there, half of them with Buffalo jerseys, half of them with Dallas jerseys, and there were 1,500 media guys there. And it just stuck out as the first time I really felt like this was a big football game. And of course, we played really well and won the football game. The third one, I was a coordinator, so that means a lot to me because I called the game. But the first one had to be the most memorable.
So, Coach, I'm going to take you way back with my question here. We're going to 1975. You were an assistant coach for 1 season with my alma mater, University of Pittsburgh. What did you learn from Johnny Majors? You guys went 8-4 that season. You won the Sun Bowl. And what was it like to see Tony Dorsett, you know, in college?
Well, I went from, a Division III program. I was a defensive coordinator at the University of Bridgeport, and they dropped football. So I was very fortunate to get down to Pittsburgh. I had met Coach Majors at a clinic. I walked up and said, hey, I think they're going to drop the program. I'll come down there for nothing. He said, hey, listen, let's see what happens. They dropped the program. He called me. So I was very fortunate. Now, my first trip into Division I, the very first thing I look at is the highlight tape, and there's Dorsett running all over the place. And, one of the things I remember more than anything else was we're sitting there playing Notre Dame, and they had 2 safeties, and I don't even remember. Browner, I think, was one of them, and there was one other, NFL guy, and they gave Dorsett a handoff, and they had both angles on him coming, and he split them and ran right by everybody. So it was great being around Dorsett. We didn't touch him in practice. If you did, you were off the field, and that's that. Now, Johnny Majors, one of the great coaches of all time. The guy understood the game, but he really understood his coaching staff a lot like Jimmy. He really trusted his guys. He had his crew of guys. I had a chance to stay there until that was the year that they went to 8 coaches. You know, before that they had a bunch, so he couldn't guarantee that I'd have a full-time job. I had gone there as kind of a graduate assistant with Dave Wanstead. Dave Wanstead was on that staff as a grad assistant. So I ended up going with Jackie Sherrill to Washington State. So that was my trip into Division I. And then of course, I stayed there up until I went to the NFL.
So, Coach, you were in Dallas for the better part of a couple decades. During that time, which opposing offensive player do you feel was the most difficult to game plan for?
I would probably have to say Peyton Manning. You know, Peyton Manning, was such a technician, and their offense was really pretty simple. You know, and he was a great processor. You know, the great quarterbacks process quickly, and he did that. And he knew he was smart. He knew everywhere on the field to go. And we played him a few times in Dallas, but we played him 6 times while I was at Jacksonville. You know, we're in the same division. So, you know, seeing him up close and personal, I would have to say he was probably number one. I would say Barry Sanders was in that category because you never knew when Sanders was going to break one. We had to work really hard to play against him. And then Tom Brady, when we played Patriots, I'd have to put in that same class. So I would have to say those 3 guys were probably all the same as far as guys you had to prepare for.
Coach, you coached one of the players that I remember when I was watching football as a kid was Benny Blades. He was a Jim Thorpe Award winner. Tell us a little bit about Benny Blades and, you know, what was he like in the locker room and what made him so special?
Benny's one of the greats. We had a great group there, as I mentioned earlier. I went back to a reunion a year ago of the national championship team, and out of my 18 DBs, 16 of them were there. That's the kind of program that we had during that period of time. And Benny was a leader. He was Benny and the Jets. You know, that was a secondary, Benny and the Jets. And I went down there, and when I saw him for the first time on the field at practice before I was hired, you know, I came in for the interview. It was before they left for the game at the Fiesta Bowl with Penn State. And when I saw him move around, I said, "Ma, this guy's unbelievable." Well, the games we had to win, the big ones, Oklahoma was big. And he was such a great safety. You know, you can't stop the wishbone without the safety being involved in the run game. And he could cover on the pass, and he was in the alley like a flash, a physical guy. He loved to play the game. I love Benny Blades. He's one of my favorite guys.
Coach Sleep coached a lot of good defensive players. I mean, we talked Dion Neon. You had him on your team. Was there a player that stood out to you when you were coaching defenses that, you know, took like leadership and ownership of the D, or was there a player that you wish that you had the opportunity to coach?
Well, I would say this. I would have to say that as a coordinator, you know, I would have to say Dat Wynn, because Dat Wynn, the middle linebacker, was the most instinctive player that I had been around as far as, you know, ability to find the football. He was a small linebacker, and he was all over the field. You know, from an instinct standpoint, he was one of the better guys that, you know, one of the guys that are kind of unsung because he made an awful lot of plays. The best player not mentioned so far to me is Charles Haley. You know, Charles Haley was the guy that made our defense. When he came there from San Francisco, he was the missing piece that gave us a chance to be one of the top 4 or 5 defenses a bunch of years in a row, and had 2 sacks in the Super Bowl after being hurt a lot of the year. So listen, being in the league for as long as I was, you know, 23 years, there's a lot of players that I think, remember that, you know, they're only 1.5% of all players play professional football. So there's a lot of unsung guys that are out there that I wish I would have coached.
So, Coach, you had an extremely tough task of having to replace Troy Aikman as the starting quarterback when he was no longer available. Let's just put it like that. So what was going through your mind, and how did you make the decision going forward of who's going to be your starting quarterback to replace a legend? Because you never want to be the guy after the guy.
Well, let me put it this way, Kevin. I knew what I was getting into when I took the job. We had lost Irvin the year before. Troy got hurt right away, so he was out of there. And Emmett was kind of at the end of his career. So I knew that we were going to be in a transition situation. And of course, coaches that by nature, I still thought I could get it done. I mean, that's just how you think. That's how it is. And it was a really rough time at the quarterback position. We had like 5 different quarterbacks during my time there, and none of them would you say, get real excited about. My first victory was Randall Cunningham at the end of the year of his career, against Deion Sanders and the Redskins, and so it was a tough time. I'll give you a quick story. I don't know. I hope Jerry doesn't see this podcast, but we're getting ready for that. My last year, and we had taken Quincy Carter and Jerry during the OTAs, the off-season training. We had Tony Banks, and Tony Banks was our quarterback, and he was the starter. And I felt, what, I have to win this year. He could probably win us 8 games. That's who he was, 8 or 9 games. And I felt like I'd have a chance to, end up staying. Well, he goes all the way through the off-season training, and we come into training camp, and he's number 1 and Quincy's number 2. So the first day we go through practice. After the game, after the practice, Jerry calls me down to his office, and we go into the office, and he and Steven are in there, and Todd Williams, his right-hand man. And they said, hey, look, we think for the betterment of the program, you're probably not going to like this, but we're going to go with Quincy Carter. And I said, Jerry, Quincy's not ready. I said, he's not ready. And he goes, well, we know, but, we think going forward that's our best option going forward. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's fine. I said, hey, look, we'll go with whoever you want to go with. And I'm thinking in my mind, we'll get into training camp, preseason, and they'll see that he's not ready, and we'll go back to Tony Banks. So I start to leave. Before I get out the door, he says, oh, by the way, we're cutting Tony Banks today. So it was Quincy. And Quincy had a few issues. Quincy actually was a pretty good quarterback, but some of the issues that he had hurt him, and he's doing great now, which makes me feel really good. But, that obviously we had Ryan Leaf, we had Sterner, we had Hutchison, we had, these guys, you don't even know their names, and it was really a rough time. And Jerry actually told me on a TV, I did some TV work in Dallas after I finished, before I went to USC. And I was at a ball game, and I was on with him, and he said, this is one of the best coaches I've ever been around. I never got him a quarterback. So that was just one of those things, we just couldn't quite get it over the top there.
Hey, Brian, finish us out. One more.
All right. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like when you were game planning for Super Bowl 30 against the Steelers?
Yeah, that was an interesting one, because we knew we had to stop the run. That was number 1. And we had to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. We had the 2 of them, the running quarterback and
Cornell, yeah.
Yeah.
Flash,
and
yeah.
So we had to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. So we had to work on the read option game and, the defensive situation. So we worked really hard. One of the things, we were a 4-3 defense, and the 3-4 guys were the guys that started with the zone blitzes, where they would bring guys and then drop one of the outside linebackers into the coverage. Well, for us, that was difficult to do because our outside linebackers were defensive ends with their hand on the ground. Well, we got about halfway through the year, and I said, you know what? We need something different. So we started dropping one of the defensive ends, and we put in some zone blitzes. We actually stole it from French Shermer and the coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Cowher.
No.
Chuck Noll?
Chuck Noll.
Chuck Noll.
I've lost my mind. He's in the Hall of Fame. The
Chuck
defensive.
Noll.
Dick LeBeau.
Oh, Dick
LeBeau.
LeBeau. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nick
right.
LeBeau.
Okay. Defensive coordinator.
So
Yeah.
I looked at every film of Pittsburgh during the year, and I looked at every film of Green Bay, and we stole some of the zone blitzes, but we didn't use them until we got into the playoffs. Well, we get to the Super Bowl, and both interceptions by Larry Brown were zone pressures. So we beat them with our own game, and that was how we ended up winning the football game, because it looked like a man situation. The receiver ran the wrong route, and they threw the ball right to Larry, and Larry luckily caught both of them, or else we wouldn't have won that game. So that was it right there. I think the zone blitzes caught them by surprise, and you know, that was, and they were on the move. You know, they kicked an onside kick, and we were worn out defensively, and we were very fortunate that Larry came up with the last interception to set up the touchdown to win the game.
So it was a great game plan, and it wasn't the fixes in like many Steeler fans think.
Yeah. I told him, listen, I was at the Hall of Fame when Dick LeBeau went in, and I told him that, and he said, well, thanks a lot for letting me know that.
Thank you so much, Coach, for coming on here today and joining us. We just an honor to have you here.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And you guys, I'm going to start watching you guys every week now. Are you on every week?
Every
Right,
Tuesday
every
night.
Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
Yep.
I'm sorry, every Tuesday. Okay, well, that's great. Best of luck to you guys.
Yeah. Remind everybody, hit that like, subscribe, notification button. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great night.